muito feio, e eu tenho muita atividade com ele, tipo, o que você pode pôr no projeto? Já te fazer feliz, ou fazer os outros felizes, de asa, e várias outras atividades. Então, tá em casa, fazer tudo, e aí ela acaba de organizar. Eu também quero fazer isso, mas certo, porque as crianças como a Leonice chegando, que não faz em português também, sim.
Aula privada hoje.
Oba. Diferente.
Eu estou querendo trabalhar hoje. Não, isso. Computador de preguiça moral aqui.
Quando é a sua festa de empresa? Foi?
Dia 15.
Acho que houve muita gente falando que tinha festa de Natal hoje, semana que vem.
1h30, não conheço nenhuma empresa que faz festa de meio-dia.
Não. A festa das crianças, a festa da Patrícia, que eles dão para as crianças hoje, começou 8 da manhã. Festa de criança, 8 da manhã, que judiação.
Anunciando. Tira esse período.
É um brunch, mas é um brunch que já começa, né? Tipo, você tem que arrancar as crianças da cama cedo. São horários mais baratos para a empresa alugar os lugares, porque é horário que ninguém quer. Mas eu já fui em algumas da própria Encana, quando o Eduardo trabalhava
nas crianças.
Sim.
Ah, tá.
É festa infantil.
Só que não, eles vão ter provavelmente mais uma festa que as próprias.
Dos adultos, sim. Não, essa da família.
Coisa chique, né? Tem várias festas. Não, as próprias. A gente está fazendo milhões de dólares.
Essa é da Arc. A Arc está super bem no mercado. Eles são uma das que as ações menos caíram.
Só uma câmera que está também embaçada. Dá pausa na música, depois que é só.
Não, me mostra como é.
Só.
Eu preciso fazer uma sessão com você.
Só dá pausa. Sem.
Preciso fazer uma sessãozinha com você. Vou
ter que montar um. Step by step. Eu acho que somos mesmo.
Oi, bom dia.
Bom dia.
Começou?
Morning. We are about to start.
Technological issues here.
Nada que eu disse. Problemas técnicos aí.
Technology can be your best friend or your worst enemy sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, no. Eu trouxe um amigo para escutar as conversas na palestra.
Perfeito.
Será que é tudo para escutar? Nossa.
I'm glad that it is in English today, so it's not Portuguese. So you'll be able to.
Eu sei, não understand. Eu understand. So I will speak Portuguese. No.
Okay. So it's working.
There.
Okay. So let's start with our prayer. Then we relax a little bit. Let's close our eyes. Send things to our Heavenly Father. The opportunity of being here today, remembering Jesus' teachings, Spiritism teachings, which brings so much light to our hearts, to our lives, to our existence. Dear Father, thank you for this house where we can pray, learn, practice, and share love. May our meeting today be blessed by the guides of Spiritism on earth. May we bring some answers to the ones seeking for love, light, and charity in their hearts, either incarnated or disincarnated. Dear Father, we ask you to guard us today, to keep us safe, and open our minds to listen with the heart. So with them, can bring this message all over we pass through and help all the brothers and sisters who are seeking for Jesus, who are seeking for the truth. So be it. Well. Welcome. Sorry, what's your name?
Will.
Will. Welcome. Very welcome to our meeting today. We will be talking about, have you ever heard about Spiritism before? No?
I told you the other day.
The one thing I can tell you, we won't be talking with spirits here, we won't be shows of spirits. We'll be more studying and understanding ourselves. That's our main goal. And Spiritism was codified by a guy called Allan Kardec. His first book he wrote was The Spirit's Book, and there are 5 books. And today we will be talking about, well, Spiritism is Christian. So we believe that Jesus is the model and guide, the most evolved model and guide that God has offered us. So we'll be talking about Jesus and Kardec, so the Master and the Apostle, what they have to teach us about charity. So the meeting today is based on the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel according to Spiritism, and Spirit's book. And our objective today is understanding indeed the maxim, without charity there is no salvation. And what does it mean for the Spiritist societies like this one? Right? Have you ever heard about this maxim? Without charity, there is no salvation. Have you ever heard of it? Without charity, there is no salvation. Yeah? We'll be talking about it anyways. So our initial reflection to drive the studies today, we would like to invite you to try to answer these questions within you. So think about all these questions. Do you believe in salvation? Do you believe that the salvation is in Spiritism? Do you feel the power of salvation within you? Do you understand the true meaning of charity? What is charity? Okay. Does anybody want to share anything before we start? No? Come on. So let's start with Matthew chapter 7, the verses 9 to 12, where she offers us a very interesting approach of what is charity. Who would like to read this first sentence or this paragraph?
Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him?
And finally, Jesus finalizes saying, so in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Basically, this verse called 12, known as the golden rule. Do to the others what you want to be done to you. And this approach is very interesting because we just brought the verse called 12. But what he brings, the reflection he brings, like someone or your son asks you bread, you won't give stone. Okay? Yes. If someone is asking for bread, it's hungry. Okay? If someone asks for fish, you won't give a snake. As if you ask for a fish, you don't want someone to give you a snake. So do to others what you would have to you. Good evening or good day. And the best evenings too. So we're talking about charity today. That's the virtue of the month. And we just started. This is actually the first slide of the studies. We had some questions before to think about. But we're talking about this passage of Matthew 7. Jesus brings us the most important teaching about what is charity. And everything sums up when he says, do to others what you would have them do to you. Right? And the interesting parts of the whole began. Hello, Tom.
That is a basic rule. It's a basic rule.
It's a basic rule. That's correct. That's also why it's also called, well known as the golden rule everywhere, right? Because Jesus wasn't the only one who said this. Many prophets, as he said, or many philosophers said this before and after him. And we still have a hard time to understand. Do to others what you would have them do to you. Without charity, there is no salvation. There is a big debate in Spiritism who said this first. If it was Kardec or if it was the Spirit Paul the Apostle. Because Paul has, in the end of the chapter 12 on this book, has a special message called, and we will read it by the end if we have enough time. Looks like we will. But the important thing doesn't matter who said first, but the important thing is what this chapter brings to us, because understanding deep what charity means is one of our goals. And also, why they say without charity there is no salvation, because in the past was used to say without the church there is no salvation. That's what have been said for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And in 1863, when this book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, was released, came this new way to see where is the salvation. And we will try to debate today why charity and what is charity can lead us to salvation. So, who would like to help me and read this beautiful paragraph from this chapter?
You can
Thank you very much.
While the maxim, without charity there is no salvation, is based on a universal principle and gives all God's children access to supreme happiness, the dogma without the church there is no salvation is based not upon a fundamental faith in God and the immortality of the soul, a faith common to all religions, but instead upon the special faith in particular dogmas.
So here is Kardec comments bringing why it's not the church but the charity. Because first is a universal principle. Second, it brings together all God's children, which is what we are, to the supreme happiness. And finally, he states what the dogma without the charity there is no salvation is not based in the God's principles or fundamental faith in God, and either in the mortality of their soul or its mortal spirit. but it's just based on something that we call a very particular dogma from the church that has been ruling Christianism for centuries. So when Kardec places charity as a principle of salvation, not spiritism, because you could have said, without spiritism, there is no salvation, but never said that, right? He is calling attention to the fact that salvation happens within the creature, not outside practices, and that everyone has access to it, since it is independent of any kind of belief. So basically, well, as we saw, Jesus' teachings about charity, do to the others what you want to be done to you. Well, that brings us a big reflection. Before I do anything to other people, I have to feel how I would like to be done this to me. So that's exactly the moment that brings this fact that salvation happens within the creature, within us, because our own reflection, what is good to me is good to my brother or my sister. And it is no outside practices. Why are we saying this? Because in the past, it was by paying the decimal or doing external things, helping people all over the place, saying that will save me. Well, the interesting thing about this is in Spiritism we still see this happen. And this is very sad because we are not understanding in deep what Kardec said, what Paul said, and what Jesus said. We always try to seek something abroad against what is inside. And then I have seen this, I don't know if you ever saw this happening back in Brazil, but people devoting their lives to help other people, and then they get sick, and they complain that they don't have time to do anything else, they don't have even time for their own family, because they are devoting their time to what they call charity. Well, my question to you, is this charity? It might be a little piece of charity, but not charity as we should be understanding. And don't take me wrong, most of the time these people are well-intended. I'm not saying that they're bad-intended or they're trying to do this to bargain with, but yeah, they could be, but not most of the cases, not. They are well-intended, but badly directed, because they have never understood again, indeed, what Jesus or Kardec or the enlightened spirits told us. So, and this is also related to the whole incarnations that we bring, like we have been Catholics in the West, most likely. Have been probably many creeds before now, here in Spiritism as the one that brings the answers to me right now. But those experiences, those past experiences, remain on us. Even though we don't recall them exactly in details, they are still within us. And this is why we say Spiritism is common to find people confusing charity with beneficence. Material charity, in which we practice philanthropy, which in fact is only one aspect of charity. So this statement is important for us, which in fact is only one aspect of charity. Why do we say this? It's only one aspect. Does anybody have a clue? What is charity? What is charity?
Love in action.
Love in action. Okay. House, wanna try? There is no mistakes here. Wanna try? Well, you're welcome to say it. Nobody's mistaken here. But learn. It's what we call, we are all apprentices. Wanna try, Angel? On this? Why do we say only one aspect of charity?
I believe it's because the truth of charity is when you give for the other people's you truly love, you know, and not only the money or material things that you have to give it up for other people. And you sometimes you give up to yourself for the other people.
That's a good approach. The question 886 from the Spirit's book, Dec makes a simple and very straight question. What is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood it? Well, if you recall a few questions behind this, and just to clarify also to Will, who is participating the first time, why we are talking so much about Jesus here. Well, you know, that's Spiritism, Jesus, whatever. But in this book, in the question 625, Allan Kardec states to the spirits, so basically the book is based on questions and answers. So Kardec was making the questions, was making questions to spirits, and the spirits were answering, and not just one, but many. And then he was compiling, or what we call codifying this whole thing. And this question 625, he asks, what is the perfect standard that God has offered humankind as model and guide? What is the perfect standard that God has offered to humankind as model and guide? And the answer is probably one of the shortest in this book. Look at Jesus. So Jesus is the perfect model and guide for humankind. And then a few questions later, actually more than 200 questions later, Kardec asks, what is the true meaning of charity as Jesus understood? Because if he is our modern guide, we want to understand how he saw charity or how he practiced charity. And now comes the answer why it's so benevolence. It's just one little piece of charity. Benevolence toward everyone. Indulgence for the imperfection of the others, and forgiveness of all offenses. Well, who would say that benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness would be how Jesus saw? Would you ever think that charity is related to forgiveness? Would you ever think about it? But if you are indulgent, do you guys are familiar with indulgence? What is indulgence? In English can be tricky because it got a little different connotation, mainly in the North American English. In the British English they still get the, because this comes from a Latin word. But basically indulgence is understand that I cannot criticize anybody else, because if I am not perfect, how can I charge someone else to be perfect? I understand that I'm not perfect. Or is there anybody here who is perfect? There is, okay. Let's change the position because I want to learn from you. But the indulgence is this, like understand that we all have our imperfections, and we are all evolving. So we are all trying to get there. But sometimes we fail at this. Sometimes someone else fails on us with this, and we have to forgive them.
Easy part.
Not easy at all. It's hard work. It's hard work. It's not difficult to. It's just hard work. So this is why before we said there is three main virtues here related to charity, which is another virtue. And Kardec also makes very important comments on these questions. As the book goes over, as you all know, and explaining for well, most of the questions are questions from Kardec, answers from the spirits, and sometimes Kardec states some comments. And for this one, he says, love and charity supplement the law of justice, because loving your neighbor is to do them all the good possible, all that we would wish to be done to ourselves. Such is the meaning of Jesus' words. Love one another as brothers and sisters. So, in the book of Spirits, there is the highest law. Kardec talks about the highest law. Do you guys remember what's the highest law? There is one law which is above all the others.
Love your neighbor, love God above all the things, and your neighbor as yourself.
That's basically the commandment, right? But the laws, we're talking about the law. Because there are many laws, for example, law of society, law of reincarnation, law of cause-effect, law of...
That is the divine laws? That is the divine laws?
Those are all divine laws, right? And this is also, because the laws are divine. Even the physics laws, they're divine. Because they were created somewhere for someone, and we understand it was God. So the highest law, the most important law that in the Spirit's book is talking is the law of love, charity, and justice. So this law comprehends every single other law. If you fail in any other law, for example, law of society, you're not being good with working with the others, most likely you're not being charitable, because you're not doing to the others what you would wish. And in this triangle, why do you guys think that we put love and charity on the horizontal line and justice on the vertical? Well, first, because Kardec has the love and charity supplement the law of justice. So there is no justice if there is not love in your actions and charity. Does it make sense? If I'm not doing my best to be lovely, if I'm not doing my best to help the best I can the other, I'm not being just.
And I believe it's because the love and the charity, it's come together, right?
They come together.
They come together.
When we talk about love, we always remember that self-love starts everything, right? As the commandment you said, like love the others as yourself. So Joana de Angelis brings us the reflection, we should always start with ourselves, because how can we love someone else if we don't know how to love ourselves?
Yes.
But how can we love God if we don't love ourselves and our neighbor? Because I am creation of God. My neighbor is creation of God. If I don't love his creation, I don't love him. Right? Simple fact. But with that said, continuing with Kardec's comments, and that goes very deep. Charity, according to Jesus, is not restricted to all giving, or that smaller. To embrace all others' relation with our fellow humans, whether in situations below, equal, or superior to our own. So, either a poor or someone who is on the same level as me, or even someone who is richer. Well, we heard about a lot of people from Hollywood that goes into very hard depressions. Like they struggle to live with their own lives.
Yes.
So wow, and then they say, wow, they don't know how to use their money. Oh, and then I say, money is not everything.
No.
Doesn't bring happiness. I can't tell you. Doesn't bring happiness. You can try to buy it, but at some point you find a lot of emptiness within. And it orders us to be indulgent, because we need indulgence ourselves. And it forbids us to humiliate the unfortunate, contrary to what commonly is practiced. Well, we live right now in a world more than ever that leaders of the world practice a lot of bullying. And there are people who think this is right. When we say humiliate the unfortunate, it's basically using your power to humiliate someone, so either in morals, material things, economical things. That's humiliate. That's bullying. that's using my power to do to someone else can't argue, can't defend it, him or herself. So, very important. We need to be indulgent because we want people to be indulged with us. Because we want people to understand that I am not perfect, buddy. I'm not perfect. Sorry, I made a mistake. Forgive me. Right? Just Trump doesn't do it because he's never wrong. Anyways, leaving politics aside, most of us ask for forgiveness. And this is basically a very important principle of humbleness. If we don't make mistakes, we're perfect. And if we're perfect, well, we don't need to ask forgiveness. Well, so much forgive. Even Jesus on the cross asked God to forgive us because we didn't know what we were doing. Remember that? Even Jesus asked forgiveness. Whenever healthy people seeks us out, we regard them with overabundance of consideration and attention. But whenever poor people or poor persons seek us out, it seems like we do not want to be troubled by them. This is a very common thing, like we'll give just some alms here because of, right? Don't bother me. And just the guy comes in the traffic light, okay. Or I try to say this is the right thing to do. But what is the real right thing to do? Is it stop the car and try to bring the guy into the car and try to convince him that Spiritism is their salvation in Spiritism? It's not the way to do it. Oh, the answer is always within us, as we all started this. If you feel it's important to give the money in that time, and you felt like it, it's all right. There's nothing wrong with it. But please understand that this is just a little piece of charity. I know that we made a lot of confusion with this word nowadays, but it is not the way Jesus, our model and guide, understood charity. This is just a little bit. Because most of the time we're giving that, but within us we're thinking, oh, this guy is lazy. He should be working. Or, you know what? He's in this situation because he did something wrong, either in this life or in other life. And Spirit is like this type of criticism, right? Oh, you are paying for your debts. Well, this is exactly what Kardec is inviting us to not do. Do not judge the others. You don't understand, and be indulgent. And namely, if, let's say, this guy wasn't kind with you and pisses you off, forgive him. That's a beautiful thing to do. Friends, share.
I was never think before that forgiveness belonged to charity, because when we make mistakes, we would like to receive the forgiveness to the others, but when the others do something bad to you, we should pay with the same coin. So it makes sense that it's charity.
Yeah. Doesn't it? Yeah. And to finalize the answer of the question or the comments, however, the more pitiable the situation of the letter, the more we should refrain from increasing their disgrace through humiliation. Those who are truly charitable seek to uplift the self-esteem of those in lower position, thereby diminishing the distance between both. If we are all brothers and sisters, we were all created simple and ignorant. Well, I might have a little more incarnations of that, maybe a little more evolved. Doesn't really means that, but I have been there. I probably have been there before, or will be. So, treating people with charitable, truly charitable principles are very important. And once again, I would like to invite you to reflect during this month, because this is the virtue of our month, to share about this single passage of Jesus' teachings. So, in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Sums up the law because it's piece, important piece of the master law, the greatest law. The prophets, because not only Jesus, but many other evolved spirits who pass through earth and said that, do to others what you have done to you. Golden rule, everybody, and I would like to open for some questions or some comments, and I would love to spend a few minutes before we finalize. But probably Renata, it was just a talk, so she probably is done with him.
They are having a great conversation.
That's good. That's good.
We're gonna have
101, yeah.
no, it's a kind of review.
That's good. Good stuff.
Well, stuff.
So, I would love to invite you also to go through this chapter of the Spirit, the Gospel according to Spiritism. It's not a long chapter, it's about 8 pages. But beautiful teachings, a very important reflection on a Spiritist way of the parable of the Good Samaritan. So, which is very misunderstood, the way that parable said. I've already done a very deeper analysis on that parable, but it's very important to go through and understand what the spirits and Kardec have to say to us about charity. I will basically try to read this text for you as the end of our meeting today. And this is a message from Paul the Apostle, which closes this chapter. And it starts like this. The Spirit's teachings. Without charity, there is no salvation. My children, in the maxim, without charity, there is no salvation, are contained the destinies of men and women on earth, and in heaven, on earth, because in the shadow of his banner, they will live in peace in heaven, because those who have practiced it will find grace before the Lord. This motto is the heavenly light, the luminous pillar that guides them through the desert of life in order to lead them to the promised land. It shines in heaven like a saintly halo around the brows of the elected, and on earth it is engraved on the hearts of those of whom Jesus will say, "Go to the right, you who are blessed of my Father." You will recognize them by the fragrance of charity that they spread around them. Nothing better expresses Jesus' thoughts. Nothing better sums up the duties of man and women, that this maxim of divine orders. Spiritism could not prove its origin in any better way than by providing it as a rule, because it is the reflection of the purest Christianity. With such a guide, people will never become lost. So, my friends, apply yourselves to grasping its profound meaning and consequences, and to discovering for yourselves all its applications. Submit all your actions to the test of charity, and your conscience will respond to you. Not only will it help you to avoid practicing evil, but it will lead you to practice the good, for not to have the negative virtue is not enough. It is necessary to have an active one. In order to practice the good, the action of the will always necessary, whereas in order not to practice evil, idleness and negligence are often enough. My friends, give thanks to God, who has allowed you to enjoy the light of Spiritism, not because those who possess this enlightenment are the only ones who will be saved, but because in helping you to understand Christ's teachings more fully, it makes you better Christians. So make every effort so that when others observe you, they can say that the true Spiritist and the true Christian are one and the same thing. For all who practice charity are Jesus' disciples, whatever the denomination to which they belong. Quoting the Apostle, 1860. Very beautiful message, isn't it? Very interesting invitation to develop this virtue in all of us. And its most pure meaning. All right? Are we good? You guys wanna make any questions? Or? Okay. Renata, I know that you can hear me. Because I can hear you.
It's the price line, right?
Yeah, I'm just coloring a few things for them to finish the poster next week, because just the two of us, we won't have time to finish the poster.
So I will need your help anyways for the rest.
Okay,
Because it's only the two of us.
okay. So Tom is just coloring and I'm organizing the things.
So more knowledge we have, more homework we have.
Yeah, more responsibility.
Responsibility.
The more we learn, the more responsibility we have. But at the same time, remembering Jesus' teachings, right? Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. It's not knowing the truth, but the truth itself that will set us free. So this is just a basically simple step to get there, but it's important one. Without knowing, we can't get salvation. All right, well, there are many.
Oh, yeah, it's ready for tomorrow.
Will, can you turn off the lights there, please? Thank you very much. Antes de vir dentro dessa tem duas dúvidas. Sem dar dúvida, deixa eu pensar. Just close your eyes.